Hi guys, I am Jess Lane and this video is over simple interest. So what do you use simple interest for? So let's say you went to a bank and you deposited money into a savings account, and every year and you deposit money into a savings account and you want to know how much you had at the end of the year. That's simple interest, okay? Let's say 2%. And so your money that you deposited and you didn't touch it gained 2% for that year. So that's simple interest. And so the simple interest formula is I equals PRT. I equals PRT. I stands for interest. P stands for the principal amount. R is the rate, and T is time in years. So P is the principal amount, like what you deposit. R is the rate that you get for the interest, and T is the time in years. So for example, suppose you deposited $400. So that is your P, that is your principal deposit. So suppose you deposited $400 in a savings account and kept it in the bank for 6 years. So T, time, is 6 because 6 years. T is in years. In 6 years. The annual interest rate is 5%. So the rate is 5%. Anytime we're dealing with rate though, we want to put it in decimal form. So 5% in decimal form is 0.05. If you don't know how to put percents into decimals, go watch the percents, decimals, and fractions video, and it will teach you how to put percents into decimals. But you move it over 2 places to the left to put it into a decimal. So we have our P, we have our R, we have our T, we have our R. In this formula, if you're trying to solve, you need 3 out of the 4. So we have 3 out of the 4, and we need to just plug it into that formula. We know the P, we know the R, we know the T. And when they're side by side, this means multiplication, right? So we're going to multiply all those. So I, we don't have, equals principal times the rate times the time. So here is what we know. We know the principal, we know the rate, we know the time. So we're going to take that and we're going to plug it all into, or we're going to use paper and pencil to solve this. And we get I is equal to $120. So if you deposit something in the bank for a year or for 6 years and you deposited $400 at the end with simple interest, not with simple interest, you'll get $120. You'll make $120. So you'll get $520 instead of $400 at the end of 6 years. That's kind of a low rate too. Okay, so let's do another example. It says a new bank customer with $5,000 to deposit. So if they're depositing $5,000, that is our P, that's our principal amount. Deposit looks at the manager's poster. The customer wants to open a CD to earn money for his retirement at a rate of 3.5%. So there's our rate, 3.5%. We change it to a decimal, move it twice, so 0.035. And annual interest rate. If he wants to have $550 in the CD, how long does he need to keep the account? So this is kind of tricky. Because it says how long we need to keep for account. So we notice we're doing time. So that means that we need to know interest. If it went from $5,000 to $5,500, then we know we made $500. So that is our interest, $500. Because we deposited $5,000, and at the end of it we had $5,500. So the difference there is $500. So that's how we know what the interest is. So in this case, we're finding T. So I'm going to take all my answers and I'm going to plug them in here. So I is 500, P is 5,000, times R is 0.035, times T, we don't know, so I'm just going to leave it as T. And now I have an equation and I'm going to solve it. If you need help solving equations, go and watch the solving equations video. Okay, it's great. So we're going to solve this equation by multiplying. So once we solve this equation, we are going to have the time. So I'm going to solve it, 5,000 times 0.035 is 175. So 175t equals 500. And then we're going to divide both sides by 175 to get what we know as 2.9 years. Okay, so we solved it. So I multiplied those sides and got 175t, and then to solve an equation, you divide both sides by 175. So we have 200. Okay, so sometimes there's special situations, and like in this case, in some situations, interest is calculated on a monthly basis, but we know in the simple interest formula, t has to be in years. So if it says it is calculated at 3 months at a time, or you want to know how much interest in 3 months, then you must change that to a year. We know that there's 12 months in a year, so 3 months as a year would be 3/12. And then we just reduce that down to 1/4. Okay, so this is what we would plug in for t instead of 3, because t has to be in years. Okay, t has to be in years. Thank you for watching.